This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian. I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
Look, some of us are lazy, alright?
If by lazy you mean wrong.
Prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide whether the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because guess what? This film is lit.
It's a story that's synonymous with Christmas. It's been told and retold, adapted and readapted, and of course, Muppet-ized. It's a Christmas Carol, and this film is lit. That's right, welcome back to the 10th episode?
Yes, the 10th.
This film is lit. It's our second Christmas special. This one's an actual Christmas movie. Chronicles of Narnia is not really a Christmas movie. I mean, It kind of is. I guess Santa's in it, so it's close enough. We're joined, once again, I say once again, if you listened to our Star Wars The Last Jedi review, by our good friend Sam Pixley from Three Wise Radio and Life in General.
Muppet enthusiast.
Muppet enthusiast. This is your first Muppet film, huh?
Joke's on you. I don't care for the Muppets at all. I don't understand them. I don't understand the appeal. But now maybe I do a little more.
A little more? We just finished watching The Muppet Christmas Carol, which won our viewer poll. Listener poll, not viewer poll.
Yeah.
We don't have viewers. Our listener poll quite handily. And now we're going to break it down with our very first segment. And we get to be two-person playing this one, which is fun. Sam, you get to play a little bit of the game.
Bring it.
Guess who?
Okay, so I'm really excited for Guess Who this week.
Do you know how this works at all? Okay, so
We guess who?
Yeah, she's going to use the character descriptions from the books, and then we have to try to guess which character
that's easy.
in the film it is based on it. Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it's easy.
Sometimes it's not.
Gonzo.
But I'm really excited for this one. I don't know, have either of you ever read any Dickens?
Nope. I mean, maybe in class, like an excerpt or something, maybe.
I want to say yes, but the answer is most definitely no.
So Dickens really likes describing things. It's paragraphs and paragraphs of flowery description. So there's a lot of character descriptions for this one.
Perfect.
He describes shit like all over the place.
Okay. Are these
Especially
from all of his
food.
books? Or
No, this is just from
the Christmas.
Just a Christmas
Great.
Carol.
I don't even know. I was just going to try to name another Charles Dickens book and then realized I couldn't. And I was like, well, never mind.
Great expectations.
I knew there was one with a name like that, but I couldn't remember what it was. I wanted to call it like The Great Journey, but I knew that wasn't right.
And these are also not going to be helpful at all versus this movie, because I
'Cause they're
assume you're not
Muppets.
going to say hair of blue with a nose the size of a banana.
I think Scrooge might be the only one we get, but we'll see.
Okay, to start.
Okay.
And remember, these are longer descriptions.
All right, so
give
I'll
me a
strap
minute. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white, as if with age, and yet the face had not wrinkled in it, and the tenderest bloom was on its skin. The arms were very long and muscular. The hands...
Now we're going off a little bit from where I thought this was headed.
The hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous bell, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and in singular contradiction to that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from that crown on its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm.
Wow.
Quick thing. I would argue that a light illuminating something not as strange as the giant muscular arms on this baby.
Yeah, I was like, we got a little tiny old man baby.
And the weirdest thing, he was lit up.
He also glowed. Well, he's a ghost. That part's not that weird, Charles Dickens.
No, he's like a candle. He has like a flame coming out of his head, and then he carries a candle extinguisher as a hat.
So it's, what's his name from Beauty and the Beast?
The French guy?
The French guy, yeah. But, what is his name?
Lumiere.
Lumiere, that's it. I mean, you looked like you thought, and I was on the same page, assuming.
Right away as the creepy ghost or spirit of Christmas past.
That was my guess.
As
you went on, my only second thought was the ghost of Christmas present. Because of just the muscly arms. I don't know. but really, everything about that was said, yeah, Ghost of Christmas Past.
It was like a bunch of, counterpoints. Like, they'd be like, they seemed really young, but also, really old at the same time. Like, lots of, not juxtapositions, but lots of, counter things.
And there was one particular line about how it looked like it was being viewed through, an ethereal plane or something. I don't remember what the exact line, but he said something about how it looked like you were viewing it through... Like, it wasn't there all the way. I thought there was a line.
As if it were a spirit?
Yes, yeah. Because the other ones seem more solid, but I don't know.
I'm locking in on Christmas Past.
I'm locking in on Christmas Past, too.
Okay, you guys are right. Ghost of Christmas Past.
Scarier in the movie.
1 for 1. I don't know if that little baby thing, instead of tiny little creepy baby hands, arms, giant arms.
It goes to shake or grab his hand and a big arm extends out.
I think that might have been creepier than the little... I don't know, those little tiny baby hands were pretty terrifying.
That descriptor did seem like a deformity, like a pretty, jarring figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, initially, right off the bat, it 100% sounded like the Ghost of Christmas Past, so... All right, 1 for 1. Boom.
Okay.
Do I need to get another beer before you finish this one? I'm just sorry.
This is your introduction to Dickens.
All right.
That's every description is like that.
Yeah.
Everything he describes.
This game would be a lot easier if every author did
know.
that.
But keep in mind, that was the interesting one.
Yeah.
If we're just going to get to people now, it's like his hat was big. The biggest part about his hat was that the top part was long.
Scrooge nailed it.
The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows, and his wiry chin.
A frosty rhyme?
Yes.
You want to say Tiny Tim.
That was the first thing that popped right into my head, was little old Tiny Tim and his cold heart.
Well, he doesn't have a great coat.
It's true.
That's got Scrooge written all over it.
Yeah, it does, but parts of it, I don't know, it seemed a little too, maybe it's one of the Marleys or something.
But the Marleys are dead immediately. Right?
But we still see them.
But you
Don't
still
we
see
them.
them.
But I would imagine if there'd be
both.
a ghostly visage.
Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, and there's chains.
And there's chains.
And chains too.
And all those chains. Yeah, I mean, I initially did think Scrooge, but yeah, there was just a couple. It seemed a little too the blue lips. I guess because he was cold. I don't know.
There's no one it would be besides the Marleys or Scrooge, and I don't think that he would give that descriptor without those points.
I agree. First instinct, Scrooge. I'm locking
Scrooge
in.
McDuck, locking in.
Yeah, it's Scrooge.
2 for 2, undefeated. This game's easy.
Oh, yeah.
You're mad that we're getting him right.
She was very pretty, exceedingly pretty, with a dimpled, surprised-looking capital face, a ripe little mouth that seemed made to be kissed, as no doubt it was, all kinds of good little dots about her chin that melted into one another when she laughed, and the sunniest pair of eyes you ever saw in any little creature's head. Although she was what you would have called provoking, but satisfactory, too.
Oh,
perfectly satisfactory.
You had me at ripe mouth.
That ripe mouth sentence is terrible. I do not like that. Read that with just the ripe little mouth, whatever the couple words after that were.
A ripe little mouth that seemed made to be kissed.
Yeah, I don't like that.
As no doubt it was.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I think Charles Dickens murdered that person in real life.
That's essentially like, you put that in today's content and it's just like, she's got a real pretty mouth.
Real little mouth.
And I bet she's a little hussy.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Because you know she is.
Yeah. I mean, it's the only one that probably... I mean, other than maybe his nephew's girlfriend, but my guess would be...
what's the lady?
Yeah,
you're going to be a stickler and make us get the name right.
I don't know her name. His young love.
I'm not going to make you get the name.
Who he did love, but then he didn't.
Fiance that broke up with him. Locking it in.
Yeah, it's that girl.
It's not. It is Fred's wife.
Husband?
Yes, it's Fred's wife.
Nice.
Who they name Clara for the movie.
Well, that's
but
even
she doesn't get a
creepier
name.
Then.
Wait,
I guess
but what is the descriptor? I guess these are questions that I have for later about the book. But is the book from his perspective?
Well, we'll get to that in the book. We'll get there.
Yeah.
When we have a segment later.
Well, I hope that was in the book. Otherwise, you're a freak.
No. You mean, is it from Scrooge's perspective?
Yeah. Like a Scrooge.
Yeah, that I guess you can answer that because that's not in my notes.
Is the book from Scrooge's perspective? I'm just trying to get context of like,
who
was he just giving descriptions, or was this in Scrooge's mind?
There's a narrator.
Okay. Cool. Perfect.
Cool.
That makes me feel better about everything that just happened.
If the narrator was Scrooge, that's a real creepy, description.
One more.
Mm-hmm.
It was clothed in one simple, deep green robe, or mantle, bordered with white fur. This garment hung so loosely on the figure that its capacious breast was bare, as if disdaining to be warded or concealed by any artifice. Its feet, observable through the ample folds of the garment, were also bare, and on its head it wore no other covering than a holly wreath, set here and there with shining icicles. Its dark brown curls were long and free as its genial voice, its sparkling eye, its open hand, its cheery voice, its unconstrained demeanor, and its joyful air. Girded about its middle was an antique scabbard, but no sword in it, and the ancient sheath was eaten up with rust.
Christmas present.
Yeah, Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah, it's the Ghost of Christmas Present.
I like that he has a sword, or scabbard, but no sword. Yeah, there's a story there.
He gave that life up long ago.
Little story.
Yeah,
I like that he's bare-chested, because they clearly chose to take that out of the movie.
He could be bare-chested. I mean, he just has his robe.
He's got his
clothes.
robe.
It's just covered in, like, chicken grease.
And red chest hair.
Tasty.
Glorious red chest hair.
As we know, grease and chest hair pair so well together.
Mm-hmm. Was that it for Guess Who?
Yeah, that was it.
3 for 4.
Not bad.
Not too bad. It could have been better. Could have been worse.
Well, so now you guys have had a small primer on Dickens' descriptive wizardry.
Mm-hmm.
The whole book is like that.
The whole thing.
It's
only
like
160 pages. Like 60 of them have to be character descriptions.
He describes everything that way, though, with that level of detail and attention.
That makes sense, because honestly, like, I was a little thrown off because I don't remember. This story's not that long.
No, it's
even
not.
to be that long, like that many pages.
It's
and I
a
know
little
I didn't
over 100 pages.
read the book. I can't, but I know this story. I can't remember how I know this story, other than like if it's just like lots of different pop culture.
Yeah, you know it by
over
cultural
time,
osmosis,
and that's it. Yeah,
that and
I surely did not read that.
No, I mean you've probably seen bits of Scrooge. You've probably seen bits of this or of this one. You've seen bits of. The George C. Scott one was one of the ones we talked about too. There's this Patrick Stewart one that was big in the 90s. That's the one I saw.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
See, she had never heard of that one.
I had never heard of it. There's a Disney cartoon with Mickey Mouse and Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, there's a billion versions of it.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely what I looked at cultural osmosis.
Yeah.
Cultural osmosis.
No, but it's not just character descriptions. He does that with everything, but especially characters and food.
Yeah.
Like, his food descriptions, I have only read better food descriptions in Redwall books.
Oh, yeah.
Did y'all ever read
I didn't read Redwall, but I know of it. I've heard it's very good. I think it's about mice.
Sort of.
Yeah. It's like a fantasy book with mice in it or something, or I don't know, something like Anyways, that was it for Guess Who. Time to move on to the first of my segments. Was that in the book? I don't think that was in the book. Was that in the book? All right. I have so many things for that. My first one, and we kind of touched on this, but so in the film, this is narrated essentially by Gonzo playing Charles Dickens.
Right.
Is the narrator in the book Gonzo? No, is it Charles Dickens, or is it narrated by just a?
I mean, it's an omniscient narrator.
Okay.
And they never say that it's Charles Dickens. I suppose you could consider it to be Charles Dickens since he is the author and therefore the storyteller. Yeah. But they never. There's no like, "Hi, I'm Charles Dickens, and I'm here to tell you."
Charles Dickens.
Yeah. But we talked about in the prequel episode that Charles Dickens used to perform this, so potentially that style of telling it in the movie is a reference to the way that he used to give public readings.
Yeah, we talked about he used to do like big public readings where he would like have characters or he would like
he would basically perform it.
Yeah, perform it by himself as like a one-man show. So
one-man shows are usually terrible.
People loved it.
Yeah,
they ate it up.
I don't remember that number he said, but he did an American tour, and he made
like $1 million.
Like $1 million on tour.
He was like a rock star of the day.
Actually, you know what? I think that could be like with the right talent, it could be feasible to if you just play Scrooge and also that'd be hard to that'd be really hard to do. Because you'd have to like describe what you're seeing, but also play off of what you're seeing.
I don't know how much acting it was, or if it was more of like
he was reading
like an audio book
like
kind of
reading
thing where
it
you're
with
doing
voices.
the voices and that sort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing.
Like he had
that makes more sense.
Had
infinitely more sense.
He's not like all right and pause and then it goes over here. It's like 2 seconds. All right. Oh, I'm so scared. Like, that would be good. We need that. I like that. We need to make that version of it where one guy jumps back and forth and does all that. That'd be fun. All right.
Christmas is coming.
Did you have one, Sam, or did you?
I guess mine was any sense, because there was a lot of humor in this, because obviously Muppets, like, and there were occasionally jokes that weren't obviously like Muppet jokes, but in the Christmas Carol, Christmas Carol, there's not really any comedy. Is there any comedy?
Oh, well, there's humor.
Is there humor, or I didn't know if it was just like just solid.
No, there's definitely humor to it. I mean, and Dickens has kind of a humoristic style.
Yeah.
Like the way that he phrases things is often funny.
Yeah. Okay. So there is some humor throughout.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually have a reference to a specific couple jokes later in my Was That in the Book that we'll talk about. But so the next one I have, because it was a big thing early, and I just want to know how they did it in the book, I guess, is that so we get hit with the song like right off the bat. Of Mr. Scrooge or whatever it's called. The Mr. Scrooge song at the beginning, and where all the town just sings all of his flaws to the audience and tells us everything that's wrong with him. Like, how do they establish his character in the book? Or is there an equivalent of, like, the town being like, man, he's the worst. He's greedy and mean and old and hates everybody and stingy.
Well, I mean,
or do we just
the narrator tells us a lot about him that we need to know right off the bat. And there's other stuff you learn as the story goes on.
Yeah.
But, right off the bat, the narrator kind of tells us, well, he's, kind of a dick.
Yeah. So the narrator kind of acts in that sense where instead of a song, obviously. Because that's what I was wondering. Because I was like, well, you get so much information about, out of this song, like what's going on, who he is, what his deal is. And if there are no songs in the book, which there obviously aren't. I just wasn't sure how they did it. So
I would imagine that it'd be pretty, based off of the descriptors that you read us earlier, it wouldn't be that hard for him to next paragraph just eloquently point out how terrible this guy is.
No, not hard at all.
Yeah. All right. The jokes. We'll just talk about this. So piggybacking off the jokes, or how much humor is in it. I have two specific ones that I want to know.
If we probably have the same one.
Probably. Well, at least one of them. But I know that... Okay, so my first one, does this line happen? So when the Marleys come, and they're like, ooh, okay. And they're like, you'll be visited by 3 ghosts. And then Michael Caine says, can I meet them all at once and get this over with? Is that line in
Yes, it is.
It is
Nice.
Fantastic.
A request to wrap it up.
I love that because it's a great line and it's a good punchline, or just a little joke in that moment. And I just wasn't. Yeah, that's awesome that it's actually in the novel. Is it the exact same line, or does it say?
No, it's not exactly the same, but
it's same gist of can we just do it all at once?
Nice.
I like that one.
I have one other one for that.
I do go for it.
So I have a line. I can't even remember who he's talking to. I think it's maybe them still. The Marleys still, but there's a line where he's like trying to get back at the ghost and saying, "Oh, you're not that scary. You're more gravy than grave."
That is in
Is
the book.
that in the book? Good. I love that line.
Yeah, that's a good line too. I actually almost wrote that one down. You're more grave than grave. I was almost going to ask that, but then the follow up line that the guy says made it seem. Oh God, what does the guy says something after that? He says something about like, oh, the puns are great today, or so. I don't. He says something about puns, or I don't know.
Yeah,
that was not in the book.
Yeah, okay. I was like, that line probably.
But that sounded like almost a nod towards it being clearly from the book.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, like that line almost clarified that line was in the book when he's like,
yeah, but
oh,
I mean
great pun.
that's the kind of humor that's in this book.
Yeah.
It's kind of that like witty,
Yeah.
I assume that line to the literary nerds is like, when I see Captain America's shield and Iron Man, I'm like, oh, look at that. And you're like, oh, gravy at grave.
Zing, bang, boom.
Well played.
All right, I have one more of the jokes, and it was my favorite moment in the film that I had not noticed before. And probably like the funniest moment in the film to me overall was when and I'm sure this isn't this doesn't really make sense, but to be in the book, but we're going to ask it anyways, just so we can talk about it. When the Ghost of Christmas Future points to his tombstone, and then Michael Caine coyishly points at a different tombstone, like this one, and he's like,
just kind of like a couple short steps, like, oh, here,
oh yeah,
no, oh,
are you sure? You sure it's not this one? Is there that gag in the?
No, that's
okay.
not in the book. But that is definitely like a visual sort of joke.
It would be hard to do in a book form. It was such a funny moment. I don't think I'd ever noticed it watching that movie before.
I honestly don't think I'd never noticed it either.
It's very low key.
Yeah, it's low key.
Those are some of the best jokes.
Yeah, it's low key, and it seems almost like something that like Michael Caine just did on the day. Probably.
I really hope he did ad lib that. That would make it so much better.
It's really funny though.
What was his old job? Because in this one it was a rubber chicken factory, and I just doubt it.
He did work for Fezziwig in the book, which they changed to Fozziwig. So that makes sense. That was
the name. I don't think is what he's questioning.
But
the product.
I'm gonna have to go back and look because
go for it.
A lot of times they don't actually say
like he just worked for old man Fezziwig or whatever.
He's a businessman.
Yeah. Can we? I think it's safe to assume that if he did sell rubber chickens, you would immediately have been like, yes, that's correct.
I think you would remember. That's probably fair.
That's probably fair. Hold on, let me.
You can look for a
see
second. You know what I did remember? Now that you just said Fezziwig, I assume this is a reference to it. There's a Sam Adams beer called Fezziwig's Ale.
Yep,
or Fezziwig's Ale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fezziwig's. Yeah. It probably is a reference. I never really realized.
Really good.
It is good. It's interesting, but I never put together what it was from.
Thing. What is? Well, she's looking that up. Mm-hmm. What is Scrooge? Is he does he own properties? Is he a banker?
He's a lender.
Loan shark?
He's a lender. He's basically a loan shark. He's a money lender. He lends money when the people miss out on their payment. He forecloses on their home.
What a dick.
He gives mortgages.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, he's just a lender.
Was Bah Humbug a thing coined by him?
I don't
know. Was that something people said?
No.
It was a thing
Go
already?
on there.
Okay.
Open up a new tab.
You can summoned.
Am I typing Bah Humbug? What am I doing?
Go to type in ETY. Etymology online. Yeah,
okay.
Look up humbug.
Oh,
okay. It means something. It was a word before. Like this book has cemented it in our language.
But beforehand
it was.
When was this book from?
Yeah.
Roughly 18 something.
1860s.
Okay. Humbug, 1751. Student slang for trick, jest, hoax, imposition, deception of unknown origin. Also appearing as a verb at the same time, deceive by false pretext.
Well, I mean, when he says it, he's basically saying Christmas is a joke.
Yeah.
Like, this is a big ruse. There's no point in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My last one, for Was It in the Book, is at the end, does Scrooge drop a sick prank on Bob Cratchit and make him think he's there to, like, fire him. And then, like, you got punked. You get a raise.
Yes.
He does?
He does. But I'm not going to go into detail about it because I want to talk about it later for better in the movie.
Okay. Cool. Works for me.
I have one more.
All right.
And I believe this is true, but it was just a creepy scene because I don't like that spider. But did people just, like, break into his home and steal his shit to sell?
Yeah, that scene's totally in the book. Not with a giant spider.
I would certainly hope.
Totally in the book.
It's completely out of nowhere. It's just a giant spiders buying items from street urchins. It's fantastic.
All right, good to know. Spider is creepy. As creepy as Muppet I've ever seen.
That's saying a lot for this film, because there are a lot of creepy goddamn Muppets.
That doll does not count as a Muppet.
Okay. Well, those little weird singing beady-eyed fuckers do, and they were pretty creepy,
the babies?
Too. Yeah. I didn't like them either.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's it for Was That in the Book? And most of it was, actually. It's pretty faithful. Just slightly changes here and there. We're going to move on to Lost in Adaptation. I only have one for this because it's not really hard to follow. There's nothing confusing. There's not really plot holes and that sort of thing. So the only one I have, and this probably could have easily have been in Was That in the Book. But at the end, when the ghost of Christmas Future is there, does Scrooge take so long to realize what's going on that he's the one who's dead? / is it implied? Because it's pretty obvious that he is eventually, at least at some point, he knows but is bargaining, sort of refusing to acknowledge the fact that it's him. And I was wondering if there's an allusions to that in the book, or whether or not he just immediately like kind of realizes it's him, or how that's played.
And it plays out pretty much the same way in the book, where he's like kind of denying it, but you get the feeling that he knows. He doesn't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's kind of what I thought. I didn't know if, like, because since there is a narrator, if there was, like, the narrator's like, and Scrooge knew his fate but would not accept it. like if that sentence was in there, or if it was just sort of implied by his actions and what he's saying. The latter?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mine was for Ghost of Christmas Present. It seemed like Scrooge just turned things around real quick. Does he have that strong of a reaction? I mean, he goes from being like, oh, man, yeah, those were good times. Please stop showing me stuff. Oh, you're a very big man. Look at how much fun everyone's having.
Dancing and everything.
Oh, they all hate me, but look at how much fun they're having. And then as he leaves, he's like, no, I'm a changed man. Like, we don't need to see the creepy guy. Like, we're good.
We're good.
Is there that quick of a just, like, turnaround? Or is he more angry?
Well, in the book, there's a little bit more character development when he's with the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Okay.
So, like, I feel like in the movie it maybe doesn't necessarily come through, but with the Ghost of Christmas Past, you start to see him really, like, regret the way that he lives his life. Like, and this is another thing that I wanted to mention later, but I'll just hit on it now. The book is pretty on the nose with it, with, like, letting us know that he regrets the things that he's done. And then that regret starts to bleed through to things that he's done very, very recently. Mm-hmm. Like, in that first scene when he's at the office, and the little, in the movie it's a rabbit, but it's a little boy in the book. He comes, knocks on the door, and he's singing a Christmas carol, and Scrooge tells him to go away. That's in the book. And then later on, when he's with the Ghost of Christmas Past, and when he sees himself as a kid, he starts to get really, like, melancholy, and he's like, oh, there was a boy at my office earlier, and I kind of wished I had given him something.
Right.
So you start to see that come through in a little bit more of an obvious way. So then when we get to the Ghost of Christmas Present, and he starts to actually feel joy at what people are doing, it makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
So then why he's then shocked again when people are just, like, shitting on him.
Which that scene, I assume, I didn't even ask it because I just assumed the scene where his nephew and his nephew's wife just, like,
play yes or no.
Yeah.
Or 21 questions, basically. That scene is in the book, and they're like, hey, Scrooge is the worst.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so there's a little more subtle transition. Because, yeah, you're right. In the movie, in that first with the Ghost of Christmas Past, it's mostly just him being like, I don't want to see this. This sucks.
Yeah.
This is the worst.
It makes me remember.
Yeah.
But
that was my I don't correct me if there's a different segment for this, but maybe it explains it more in the book. Do we ever get an idea of why, as a child, he was even like this? Like, what started him on this? Because we never get like a what started him on this path. It's just like, as a little kid, he was like, fuck it off, leave me alone.
Yeah, not really. It's a little bit different in the book. He stays at school in the book. Like, they kind of imply in the movie that he stays at school over the Christmas holiday because he wants to.
Yeah.
But in the book, there's an implication that he doesn't go home because his family doesn't want him to come home.
See, that's an interesting...
That would do something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
But I guess not every villain has to have like a sad story as to what became that.
Yeah. But that would actually make sense. Or it's a good character, background motivation for...
it's more pointedly addressed too in the scenes with his previous love, that he's been very corrupted by like money and ambition and greed.
Yeah, they did only get 2 scenes. No. Oh, hello. Oh, hey.
Well, actually, we didn't watch the extended version.
Yeah, that's true. Well, because only the
you only get it in full
the short little part where his girlfriend breaks up with him in the extended version, she sings a whole song, and it's like super sad.
I think we made the right choice.
Yeah, it sounds
no,
awful.
I don't love the song, admittedly, but I will say that it does flesh out that scene, and it gives it a little more emotional weight.
Yeah, sure. That's true. Well, and it's because you're right. It is like they meet, and then she's like, "Well, we're done here."
You used to love me between this scene and the last.
We're done here. Yeah, because I actually forgot that he didn't like Christmas when he was a kid, or like that was part of it. I thought it all, for some reason in my head, I had it all hinging on that moment. The reason he didn't like Christmas was because his fiance left him like during Christmas or whatever, and so like he just from that point on he like became a curmudgeon. But I forgot he was like a little shitter all his whole life.
Just a person that didn't have their priorities straightened out.
Perfect. All right, I think it's time for your segments because I'm all out of Lost in Adaptation. Or was that in the book? So it's time for which one did we do first?
Better in the book.
We did that first?
Yes.
All right. Better in the book.
Okay, so we already touched on, we get a little bit more of his backstory in the book.
Yes.
We also get to meet his sister.
He has a sister.
Well, there you go.
He has a nephew.
Well, hey, ding, bang, boom.
Well, they said only
really living relative. Yeah, she's dead.
He has a dead sister.
Everybody's dead back then, Sam.
So we meet in like one of the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah, in the Ghost of Christmas Past, we see his
sense.
sister. It's his sister. So in the movie, he goes straight from school into his apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And in the book, his sister comes to get him from school to say, our parents want you home now. And he's like, really? And she's like, yeah, and they're totally not going to send you off to be an apprentice.
Yeah, and they totally going to love you and everything. It's going to be great. Come on.
This won't send you to the path.
This really won't be the cause for like a really crazy midlife crisis where you see a bunch of ghosts or anything. This will be great. So, sorry. So was that what you liked better in the book? Was that moment happens?
That he has a sister? Or had?
I mean, I always think it's interesting to get a little more backstory.
Yeah, with that sort of thing. It does add another element of... so I assume the idea is that he goes home and then his parents send him away to an apprenticeship. Yeah. So it's another added layer of...
Yeah. Of him being alone
rejection and distrust of other people and that sort of thing.
I see where Bah Humbug started to have its origins.
Yeah.
Welcome home. Get out.
I want to talk about a couple things that they cut.
Okay.
So the Ghost of Christmas Presents is in general kind of sassy in the book.
That little baby thing?
No,
present.
Present.
Sorry,
the big beard man.
Yeah. Rotund.
Yeah, big guy. There are a couple moments where he like drags Scrooge. He fucking drags him
around by his scruff.
Is he hesitating, or is he like, I don't want to see this? He's like, come on.
No, not drags. Like,
physically.
Like
the modern slang term of
the
drags.
Sense of drag.
Like the internet sense. Me and Sam were both like picturing a giant
you
Muppet.
You were both behind on
come
the
on.
times.
I would have liked to see.
We're talking Dickens here.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that old dude dragging Michael Caine around, that giant weird Muppet man.
So you know the moment in the movie where he throws Scrooge's words back at him and says if he's gonna die, he better do it and decrease the surplus population. He does similar things like a couple more times in the book and just like pretty much lets him have it for, being himself.
For being Scrooge.
Yeah, for being Scrooge. So that was interesting to read. A lot of it was pretty funny.
So some of the humor elements of him just like fucking roasting.
He's like the most compelling ghost.
He is kind of the most compelling ghost.
He's the most interesting.
Which is the most interesting one to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he has the most to say, that's for sure.
In the movie, he's just kind of bouncing around.
This is great.
But no, he's not like just jolly all the time.
In the book.
Actually, another thing that they cut is ignorance and want.
Is that a different? I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what those words mean, but I don't know.
So there's a point near the end of his time with the Ghost of Christmas Present where he opens his robe and like sitting around his feet are these two like starving beggar children.
Oh, okay.
And he asks him, Scrooge says, "Are they yours?" And he says, "They're mankind's. The boy is called Ignorance and the girl is called Want, and they'll be your undoing," or something like that, if you don't, like, see to their welfare.
Right. So he hits him with some harsh truths.
Yeah. That's basically what the Ghost of Christmas Present does, in a sense, is he hits him with some harsh truths.
Yeah. That would have been really compelling. Just to like see this jolly guy and it's like living in the moment, in the present, like enjoying everything, and then also being like, oh yeah, but you also got all this stuff.
I don't necessarily know that it would fit in a Muppet version.
You can make some little Muppets,
but it is like it's a kind of a dark, powerful moment in the story overall.
It's funny when you mentioned it. Because I'm sure it's been done in some of the other versions.
Yes.
I feel positive because you as soon as you said that, I remembered
it's
seeing
definitely
that,
in the George C. Scott
I think
version.
It's also in the Patrick Stewart version because I vividly remember that visual of that happening in that moment and like being like, whoa, like, and so it stuck with me enough, even though it wasn't in this one, which is probably the one I've seen the most. Yeah, that's they wanted him to be a big, friendly, happy, red-headed giant. So
I mean, the other two ghosts are pretty creepy. So.
I think it would have been great. Not great. It would have been terrible, but just like real hard truths. If it's like the same big Muppety red-headed giant, and then that scene happens, and it's like two actual thin-ass little human beings, like not Muppets, like real people, like starving. Like that would have been intense. Real intense.
Would have been an interesting choice.
One last thing that they cut. When Scrooge is with the Ghost of Christmas Future, he asks the ghost to show him someone who feels emotion caused by, and he says this man's death, but he knows it's him. Right. He knows.
Give me somebody who cares. Yeah.
Give me somebody who feels some emotion over this. And the spirit shows him a young couple who had a mortgage through him and are happy to no longer owe him that mortgage.
That's great, though. That's great.
Nice.
That's good writing.
Like, that's a solid burn.
Yeah. Real good.
You get what you ask for.
Yeah. And again, that's another one that, listen, you say that, I think I remember from one of the other versions that I've seen of it, where I think I remember him doing that and being like, "Oh, these people are were real touched by your life."
That's more compelling, actually, than what you got in this one. Because you got people that were like, you had those pigs that were just like, he stinks. I wouldn't go hang out with that guy unless there was a free lunch. And you have the other people who just robbed him, but to actually have somebody that feels like joy at your demise is an extra level.
Yeah, because I mean, they're basically like,
their lives
we don't know who our mortgage is going to go through now, but at least it's not this fucker.
It won't be this guy, and if we're a day late or a day and a penny late, he won't take our house from us. So that's good. Awesome. Is that it for Better in the Book?
Yeah, that was it for Better in the Book.
All right. We're moving right through. Time for Better in the Movie.
so in the book, right after the scene with Jacob Marley, which, by the way, you guys didn't mention this at all. There's only one Marley in the book, right? Oh. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
They made it two so that they could use those specific characters. Or whatever, yeah. But I always liked they named that's Jacob Marley in the book, so they named the other one Robert.
Is that a joke?
Bob Marley.
Oh man, those Hensons, and their jokes,
crazy kids.
I'm sure he's credited as Bob Marley in the credits. They didn't stick around that long, but I'm sure that's what it was.
Clever.
So anyway, right after the scene with Jacob Marley, there's a scene where Scrooge looks out the window and he sees a bunch of other ghosts that are like dragging their chains around. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I don't know how well it would have translated into film. It's kind of like an extra layer of the same message that we don't necessarily need.
In the book,
so was cutting that out better?
Yeah,
oh, okay. I didn't get what the better in the movie part was.
Yeah, it's just a smarter choice.
They cut that, and I think that was a good choice.
Gotcha.
And in the book, he gets wrapped up in some chains too, right? They like start to put chains on him. Or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because he does get some chains on him in the movie.
Well, it's a musical number.
It is a musical number. He's got to get wrapped up in chains for.
He does quickly get them off. He's kind of
he's like, that's enough of these.
Get this off of me.
Oh, the dance number. That's like the word. I actually hate that song, the Marley and Marley song. I don't know why. I'm not a fan of it. Something
I
about
hate the part where they go whoa.
Yeah,
but I like the rest.
I don't
of it.
like it.
I
don't care for any of those songs.
Oh, I love. It is the spirit of the season. That song. I like that one a lot. And then like the final one, that Michael Caine sings like as he's going around, which is a different song.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's called, but I like those two. Other than that, I don't really care.
I think I just didn't know it was a musical, so I wasn't prepped.
Yeah,
unprepared.
Yeah, it's fair. What else is better in the movie?
Okay, we already talked about Scrooge's character development. There's a scene in the book where Scrooge sees Belle with the man that she ultimately married and her family. It's a Ghost of Christmas Past scene. Mm-hmm. Again, interesting, but I think the movie was right to cut it. Okay. It's whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting because I could see that being a pretty... Well, I guess we just know that happens. We don't really need to see it.
And we didn't put much emphasis on her.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe if she had her whole music number in the movie, and then you could do that.
To see.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. She's in it for 5 seconds, and nobody cares.
Yeah. Okay, so earlier we put a pin in the prank that he plays on Bob Cratchit.
Yes, yeah, you said to come back to that later.
Yeah, you wanted to know if that happens. It does.
Okay.
But in the book, he doesn't go to his house on Christmas Day and like bring his family a feast. He sends them a turkey.
Oh, okay.
He sends it to their house. But then the next day when Bob Cratchit comes to work, he's like, "Oh, you're late." And makes him think that he's going to fire him. And then he's like, "But I'm going to raise your salary." Ta-da!
Ta-da. So it is. So he does the exact same prank.
Yeah.
He just does it the day after Christmas.
Yes.
Instead of doing it at his door. I was hoping you were going to say, here's what the prank actually is.
No, but I
charges him for the turkey.
Yeah,
I like the way it plays out in the movie a little bit.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's a much more satisfying like moment and big finale, and because they can do a musical number all together and
you
the
get
whole town's
Miss Piggy
together,
huffing and puffing around. And...
No, it's a better moment. Whereas the other way kind of almost seems more like a denouement.
Yeah, it's like an afterthought almost.
No,
but in the book, he spends Christmas Day with his nephew and wife.
Oh,
so
I guess that would be nice too. But
Yeah.
they are there at the feast.
Yeah.
It's not like everybody, literally everybody. As
all
we discussed,
of London.
As we discussed, he may have gotten the biggest turkey, but not quite that big of a turkey. I don't think they're feeding the whole town with that thing. Yeah, that is true. It's London, so that's a lot of London.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of people. Is that it for better in the movie?
That was all I had.
All right. If we have any other, let's hit some general discussion. If we have any other small notes we want to discuss before we get to the final verdict. Yeah, let's do
First off, both Tiny Tim related. A, what is his affliction?
Okay, so the book never actually says
He's got a cough. He's got a limp.
Actually, a lot of scholars
rickets.
Theorize that maybe it was rickets. Yeah. I think the other one, I looked it up the other day. It was rheumatoid fever, maybe.
I also is rickets the one where you don't have enough vitamin C? No, that's scurvy. One of those. What's rickets then? I don't know. I just know that
look
word.
It up.
All right, I got a computer. You're
right.
It
sounds like something where you got the shakes, but I don't think that's right.
Rickets. But yeah, he's got his lungs are weak. He's got a cough. He limps. He walks with a cane.
It's softening and weakening of the bones in children, usually because of extreme and prolonged vitamin D deficiency, whereas scurvy is vitamin C deficiency, I believe. So it's similar.
So it is something that could be cured with money.
Yeah, it could actually. Yeah, which makes sense because if it's something like polio,
and especially if he's young enough, then presumably Scrooge just started getting him the nutrition that he needed.
Yeah,
right.
And he was fine.
Yeah. Question B, and I guess this was, did it happen in the book? Does Tiny Tim's father refer to him as Tiny Tim?
Yeah, they all call him Tiny Tim.
They all call him Tiny Tim the whole time?
Well, I mean, I guess he's stunted because of his rickets.
Stunted with rickets.
Oh, so why is the youngest son shafted and all the other kids are fine? It's like, Tiny Tim, Well, he is the youngest, so we give him, obviously, the least.
Well, here's probably what it is that the others, when they were growing up, there was less of them.
Yeah, there were fewer children.
There was fewer to feed.
That's fair.
So by the time it got to him, they were scraped way thinner. And since he's the youngest, he's the most malnutritioned because he's never had good nutrition.
But also, why are their parents making the choice to call their child out on one of his things that makes him different to everyone?
You're tiny.
That's a really good, valid
come on over,
question.
Coughs a lot.
I did.
And I really think we should hold a seance right now to ask the ghost of Charles Dickens
why he
made that decision.
I thought the same thing though. I was like, they call him Tiny Tim. That's kind of funny, It's like it's like if your child has, they might as well, call it Coughs a lot or Limpy Tim. What do you?
Tim, you're smaller than you should be. Just want you to never forget that.
We will make sure you never forget by only ever referring to you in reference to your stature.
And whose fault is it? Mostly ours.
Mostly yours. You probably shouldn't even be here, but we couldn't stop having children. The only other thing I had was this little moment that we never noticed, and I think Sam pointed it out. Yeah, he did. Because the Swedish Chef makes an appearance for a split second.
God.
And in that moment, the Swedish Chef has human hands. Straight up human hands.
Does he always?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I've never noticed that before.
I'm pretty positive.
And now I can't unsee it, though.
I'm pretty positive that he does not always have human... Oh, wait, maybe he does because he cooks.
So he
needs human hands. I've got a YouTube video here that has him cooking. Yeah?
Oh,
yes, he does have human hands. So he always has human hands. I never noticed it. Maybe not always. Maybe there are some scenes where... But this is a very different scene.
I see a bunch of images where...
And he very clearly has human hands in order to manipulate.
Maybe whenever he's got to do his
cooking
scene. Yeah, I bet if in promotional photos and stuff, he's got Muppet hands.
Yeah. Yeah, and certain scenes where he's not chefing it up. That makes sense. My other note I had, I don't like watching Kermit walk at all.
Because of his legs.
Something about those legs and the way it's shot, I'm just not a fan. I like
too frog-like. Frogs shouldn't be up.
So have you ever seen the original Muppet movie?
Yeah, probably.
Because he rides a bike in that.
I cannot see that. I absolutely cannot see that, but I am also Googling it right now. Kermit rides the frog. Riding a bike. I got riding and then riding a bike.
Did you need to put Kermit the Frog?
Oh no, I don't like this already.
I bet they're real all over the place.
They're so long. Oh no, don't give me a close-up. Look at those weird legs. I don't like that. I really don't. That's not okay.
The thing is, they're as long as they should be.
Yeah, I guess they are.
They're very appropriately sized frog legs.
No. They're lengthwise. I think the thing that is how spindly they are. Because frog legs are muscular. Yeah. They have girth
meaty.
to them.
That's why people eat them.
Yeah.
The top parts are.
Yeah, the top. Yeah, the thigh area. And I just don't like how long and spindly and weird. And when he walks, he bounces. I don't know. Something about it just is very off-putting to me. I just like when he's behind a desk, so we just see his...
Well, while we're having a seance, why don't we go ahead and raise Jim Henson? We can ask him about
All right, well, if we're asking him that question, I have the question of questions for Jim Henson. Or, I don't know, he wasn't involved in this, so Brian Henson, who's still alive. I want to ask him about the science of Kermit and Miss Piggy having children, and why all the female children are just straight up pigs, and why all the male children are just straight up frogs.
I think that's actually done in like movies and stuff when you have like two different animals.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty common trope.
Whatever the sex of the mom is, that's what the daughters will be.
That makes sense.
Because it's
Shrek.
easier than deformity. It's just this like...
What does Shrek do?
Remember when was it Shrek the Third that was on TV a couple weeks ago? And the donkey and the dragon have babies, and they're like weird dragon-donkey hybrids?
Yes, that's right.
Gross.
And I was like, that's weird.
It is weird, but I don't know. It's just, I was like, why? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I get it for simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
You don't want to make weird abomination.
You don't want to spend money on another puppet.
Pig frog hybrids. Like, I get it. But, like, it's just, I don't know.
Just think of how top heavy and then those long legs, Brian. You don't want those things mixed together.
It was like a...
Do you know that piggy tops, frog bottoms?
Frog bottoms. I am not on board with that at all. This is haunt my nightmares. Those things were a whole school band of them riding bikes at me.
Got a real lollipop situation going on.
No, thank you. Did you have anything else, Katie, before we get to the final verdict?
Something I kind of wanted to talk about is a thing that I really like about this story, and I didn't realize that the book was going to be the same way, but it's not particularly religious.
Oh. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there's some
mentions of like going to church,
right.
Blah blah blah. But like the line about like blind men seeing and lame men walking is really the most religious that it ever gets.
Yeah,
like they never actually say Jesus.
Yeah,
anywhere in this story.
Yeah, I mean, the final line is, you know, God bless everyone. But it's a generic.
That's a generic. Yeah. You know.
No, but the message is about just being a better person, and not as opposed to like some of the other ones.
It's not like, the reason for the season is Jesus. Right. It's the reason for the season is to be good and kind and to treat your fellow humans like humans.
It's a good message.
Yeah,
it's a nice message for if you're not into the whole Jesus thing, or if you are, but it's still a good message. But
it's not a bad message for anyone.
It's not a bad message for anybody, but it's nice because there are a lot of Christmas movies where it's very centric on Judeo-Christianity. This is very much just like be nice, don't be a dick. Just don't be a dick. The Christmas movie, so that's nice. All right, it's time for the final verdict, Katie.
This is actually a really pretty faithful adaptation, except for some small changes. I'm going to give it to the book.
Okay, good. I was going to come at you if you gave a Muppet anything a better version than the original. As good as that Muppet thing could be.
It's a really good adaptation. Like, it actually is a really good adaptation.
It's faithful and it...
Yeah.
Have you seen a Muppet Moby Dick? It's pretty compelling stuff.
Giant foam whale. I hope, they need to get Michael Caine to play Captain Ahab.
You know what? He'll do it, but he's not going to treat it like there's Muppets.
He's not doing anything Muppety.
It's him with real people and real whale.
It's a real problem. Nothing Muppety going on.
I don't know if there was ever a better choice for Scrooge.
No, and we talked about this on a prequel episode when I brought that line up. It sounds like a curmudgeonly thing to say, but it actually makes a lot of sense to give the movie the kind of sort of
to ground it
the way it does is to have his portrayal of Scrooge be so like, yes, I'm doing Shakespeare. It grounds, because it would just be a silly.
He can't accept any of the sillionness that's going on.
And especially with Scrooge, because he is such a curmudgeon, anyways. Playing it like you're going to be a curmudgeon, like as you're as an actor being like, I'm not acknowledging any of this shit, actually makes a lot of sense and works really well for the movie, and it adds, like I said, a lot of pathos to it that wouldn't be there without. If he did it like more stupidly.
There's a real quick comment on the one thing that I forgot of, which was the saddest thing in the whole movie.
What's that?
It's like when Kermit or whatever, Cratchit, comes home, and then the shot after he walks in the door, the shot keeps going, and there's just this little bunny rabbit who I assume is going, who I assume is dead in the morning.
Isn't that
like
not
just shaking, never addressed again? Like there's not a happy ending.
He's the same one at the end
It's
that he
the same
sends
one.
to get the turkey.
I don't know.
It's the same rabbit.
Might be a brother.
There are a lot of
that
them.
guy.
They do tend to make a lot of them. When
I saw that, and I know there's just a little man under there shaking that stick to make this thing freeze to death, but like that got me.
Yeah. It's a good moment. It's a good. Yeah.
It's a terrible moment.
I mean, well,
maybe that's how they decided to replace the starving, ignorance, and want children.
Yeah.
Just
with a sad dying bunny. Wrapped in newspaper.
Shivering away. All right, Katie.
It's kind of a dark story, Sam. It really is.
It is. The book is better, which is not. It's a classic, and as good as the Muppet adaptation is, it's hard pressed to beat Dickens.
Yeah. So, go read A Christmas Carol.
It's pretty short.
It's pretty short. It's not a difficult read at all.
Yeah.
I mean, Dickens is a little wordy.
Obviously, we've experienced this.
But it's really not a difficult read.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to read it, there are multiple film versions to choose from.
There's a billion. We gave you 5 to vote on, and we only did one of them. So
I would assume with the descriptors too, there's probably an 8-page clip notes that you can probably read that really sums up all of it.
Knock right through it. But yes, what's our next episode, Katie?
Our next episode, I believe after the new year is when that'll be posting.
Yes. Yeah, sometime.
Was going to be Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
That's right. I forgot we were doing that.
/ Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory because they changed it to sell candy.
Yes, and we're not doing the Johnny Depp remake. We're doing the original.
But that is interesting because I've heard that one is actually
more faithful.
Yeah.
It is a little bit.
Yeah,
in
supposedly.
A way.
But I think that'll be more interesting for one that's not faithful, but is a better, a better movie. I think that'll make for a more interesting podcast. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll find out when we get there. But until then, guys, keep reading books, keep watching movies. And anything else, Katie, before we go?
Have a Merry Christmas.
Oh yeah, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and a Happy Holidays because this comes out a week before Christmas. So
yeah,
see you guys later. Say bye, Sam.
Always yeah.